And here we are, 3, 2, 1, and we are live. It feels like forever since we talked, Antoinette, but it's actually just 2 weeks ago. But the whole world have shifted since then for us in South Africa, definitely. Yeah, do you also feel like, in a way, that this is all unreal and maybe it didn't happen? You just had a bad dream?
Yeah, look, I haven't been in the reality of it like you have, but even from a distance, it feels, yeah, in 2 weeks, so much has happened. We all knew this was going to happen, but now that it's happened, it's beyond comprehension. And for me, without even being involved in it, I suppose it's an energetic thing, but it's been astoundingly overwhelming, and you've been right in the thick of it. So thank you for showing up tonight, despite that, and because of that, actually. So I think it's all up to you now, because you've been the recipient of the trauma, and you're the person who knows how to take people through trauma. So
yeah, it's important to notice that there's a difference in the experience. You can sit and watch in horror as the planes fly into the Twin Towers. And that changes your perception of the world, and it does take away your safety. But when you're actually in New York and you watch people jumping, or you are part of what's going on, your experience of the trauma is very different. And it's about your internal language, because what happens when you are inside it is that we were in a car accident probably about 20 years ago. And as the car was rolling, I can only remember one thing, and that was I thought in that moment as we were rolling, there was no light flashing before my eyes, nothing of that nonsense. It was like, I just thought, I can die tonight. That's all I thought. Roll, I can die tonight. Roll, I can die tonight. And we landed and we got out and we eventually got help. But it's that one single thought, I can die tonight. That's that single thought. I can lose everything tonight. I can, it's that one single thought. But if it's untreated, you get out, you dust yourself on, and you carry on as if nothing has happened. That's what causes post-traumatic stress disorder, and this is why I'm doing this. Because if we don't deal with it now in the moment as we are going through it, and we're going through it as a collective, we've got many, many people to talk to about this, about our experiences. If we just go dust ourselves up and, oh, great, I'm still here, let's carry on. And I didn't even share that thought with anybody for many years. It was like, okay, we got through it. What do you want to moan about? You're still alive. You lost everything in the back of your car, and you lost a lot of money there. So what? You're still alive. Don't moan. And that's generally our attitude. So, okay, fine. Now we've managed to make it through, and we are all talking about the community that was so amazing. And we are all talking about how wonderful it was that these people are sweeping and the food delivery, and we're focusing on getting food. So we are focusing on that. So we are back to our norm, which is looking okay. And we are not talking about our trauma. And that's in the email that I sent today. That's the research. That is the actual science behind the whole thing, is the dichotomy. We are torn in half because on the one hand, we just want to close our eyes and make believe that this has just never happened and carry on with our lives. We liked our lives before. The kids would go to school and you'll cook something for lunch or supper, and you'll meet some friends and you'll be on WhatsApp and you'll do your stuff. You'll do whatever you do to get yourself through the day. We like our lives. That's why we keep on doing the same thing, because we like it. So all we want to do is we want to get back to our lives because that feels safe to us and that feels known to us. And the brain likes safe and the brain likes known. So we just want to get back there. On the other hand, we have an enormous need to talk about it. So when you have on the one side, it's like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I find it traumatizing. But if I don't, but I also have this need to talk about it. And we are all wired like that. And that is what causes this kind of uneasiness inside us, is because of that. And so what we have to do instead is we have to process, but we have to process and at the end find the positive in it. Process, but don't soak in it. Process, don't get angry. Process, I mean, if you get angry, don't stay in anger. Get angry, go break something, come back, process, and move on, move through it. But don't soak in it. So it's just that tiny little shift, allowing ourselves to talk about it, allowing ourselves to talk about our experiences. Forget about the people who are barricading the roads with trolleys. Yes, they are heroes, and we're all like, yes, you wonderful people. But we don't talk about that moment of trauma when you, like, let me tell you, I'm standing in my house. I have 30 minutes to pack, maybe an hour. And for about 20 minutes of that hour, I'm being useless. I'm like, I don't know what to pack. And I'm a pretty organized person. And I'm standing there and I'm like, it's not about what I can pack. It's about everything I have to leave behind. Everything that's of value to me, everything I have to leave behind. It's about not knowing where to go. What do you do next? It's that violation of what is safe for you. Everybody's homes are safe for them. Everybody's neighborhoods are safe for them. It's about that violation of your world view. And that is not something that we're supposed to just sweep under the rug and pretend it didn't happen. And before we take comments and talk to people, I do want to say, you know what? The next thing that happens here is that we become hypervigilant. And I've had it the whole week, I couldn't work well, even if I wanted to, I didn't have internet, but I couldn't focus. I couldn't write an email. I couldn't do anything. I had no organization left in my head. It was scrambled eggs. Actually, it was empty. So I just went into the studio and I did some pottery, and it worked. That worked for me. I did pottery. I cut out a lamp for myself. Let me tell you, for myself, not anybody else. I made a lamp for myself. And it was wonderful. And I didn't put pressure on myself, and it just felt right. But every time there was a noise outside, that's hypervigilance. Didn't even switch the radio on because I want to hear if there was a noise. And but with hypervigilance, we mess ourselves up more. And it's very hard. How are you not hypervigilant when your livelihood, your home, your safety, your community, your very life is actually threatened at that moment, because you don't know what a mob is going to do next. You really don't know. And a mob that's about to demolish the local liquor store there's no guarantees. And the level of violence and the unnecessarily cruel nature of what happens in this country, you don't want to be in that situation. And you don't want to leave things behind that you've worked through for all of your life, but you also know you can't be around because it's too unpredictable. So when you put all of those things together, then we get to a place where we need to process. Otherwise, we're going to have long-term post-traumatic stress disorder, and we're also going to have hypervigilance, which can turn into more serious syndromes, which is harder to break. So the sooner we have this conversation, the better.
So thank you for having it, Louise. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened, or is it too traumatic for you? Or
No, I think I shared it a lot already in the email that I sent out on Sunday. But basically, what happened is that early in the morning the ride started, which is 400 meters from our house and our business, which is at the same place. And the videos, the videos on WhatsApp start coming in and you see the police there and they're doing nothing. You see them and you're like, incredulous, but surely not, because surely not is the voice, but voice in reasonable people's heads. Now, you really can't believe it. You can't believe that the police are sitting there watching these people. A very small crowd start making their fires and trying to get into first the Spar, the supermarket, and then managing to get into the smaller liquor store. And then for the rest of the day, which was, I think that was in the end the most traumatizing, was the fact that they broke into the hardware store, and this is a new guy in the community. He's just bought the place and he's just redid it, and it's like nearly finished with redoing the whole place. And they broke into his place, and a lot of the paint and everything was removed, but the remaining tins of paint they kept on throwing into the fire that they made in the road, and so those tins were exploding the whole time. So, and there's this boom bang. First you don't know what it is, and then you find out, and then the WhatsApps start coming in. And in the end, you need to watch for WhatsApps because you need to know what's going on. But they are also the ones that are traumatizing you. But if you don't have them, you don't know what's going on, and that's also traumatizing. So this went on for a long time until in the afternoon they actually just went past the police and all the security and started looting the next shops. So, and we are just 300 meters away from the last shops then, and they're literally next to us. And you don't quite know what to do because it's you standing there. You don't quite know what to do, honestly. It's hard not to know what to do. So in the end, we've had 4 security guards coming in with their dogs, and they had live bullets, and they shot at them, and the crowd dispersed within minutes. It was literally, we were saved in the last half an hour because the big bottle store was the next thing. And then, so then that was when all bets was going to be off. And by this time, we've already heard that they're going to come and burn all the houses in our street. So that's the story of my Monday.
And there is a petrol station right next to where you live. So if they had burnt the petrol station, there would have been no chance. Hey?
Yeah, no, it would have been a devastating explosion if that happened. It was very dangerous. It was very scary. Yeah, so I think what the most important thing to notice for everybody who have been through any kind of trauma, and you know what, Antoinette, we're not just talking about this kind of trauma. Like we are talking about any kind of trauma, is to realize that we have a need to go back to normal. And that's fine, but we must really not go back to normal without processing. And processing generally happens in one of two ways. The one is talk about it. The more you talk about it, but make sure you don't talk in a victim fashion. And don't talk in a hateful way also. That doesn't help. Just talk through your experience. The way that I talked through my experience, just tell your experience. Don't bring all the negativity and the hate and all of that stuff in it. That's anybody has to choose how they view things, but that's not healthy for you to focus on that. Focus on your experience. Just tell your experience, because your experience is unique to you. Those thoughts that are in your head is what is unique to you. Like my car accident experience, the traumatizing thought was, I can die tonight. Mm-hmm. In this case, it was, if I leave now, I may come back to nothing. That was a traumatizing thought of Monday. It was to think that everything that we've built up for 26 years may be burned to the ground together with everything that's important to us, except the cats, which would go with me for first. But everything else would have disappeared. So we all have a traumatizing thought. Identify it and look at it. It's important that you look at it and not just brush it away. And then talk about the actual experience, recounting the tale of the car rolled, and it rolled another time, and it rolled another time. That takes the trauma out of you. It's weird. People avoid talking about it because they think it's going to re-traumatize them. When you talk about it in the beginning, you talk the trauma out of you. If you're already in post-traumatic stress disorder, which nobody is in now from last week, we're not now already in post-traumatic stress disorder. We still have time to get through it. We may be in hypervigilance, but not in PTSD. If you talk about it, your experience and how you felt afterwards, when you're already in post-traumatic stress disorder, then you re-traumatize yourself. Then you can't do that. And most professionals don't know this.
That is so astoundingly interesting and important, Louise, because we're not encouraged to talk about this, are we? We're encouraged to be strong and suck it up and then worry about it a few years later when you really traumatized. So if people speak it out, it really helps just to speak about it.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the way that I talked about it just now, which is really real, this is my experience, this is how it was. I'm not damaging anybody by it. It's just my experience. This is what happened. When Jan had a motorbike accident, I eventually couldn't listen to him because he told so many people exactly what happened. There was a turn and the this and the that. I'm like, I can't listen to this one more time. I'm just walking away, but it was his way of working through the trauma. And it's unconscious. We don't understand this. It's unconscious how we work through the trauma. It's through the telling of a story. And then what so many people do is, I'm being strong for everybody around me. I'm just going to put on this brave face for everybody else around me. That's rubbish. We're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to encourage everybody to tell these stories. If we rather say, come and sit here with me, and I'm going to tell you how I felt, and then you tell me how you felt, and you tell me how you felt, then we are all working through our collective trauma because we are, if you engage it in, you are with an audience who understands. Well, most of us, not all communities have been just heard that Hilton hasn't been touched. So not all communities have been touched by this. But many has, and many are still going through it, and many have been war zones. Places like Vryheid that has been war zones for years now. This has been going on in various communities in this country for years. So it's to understand. Don't make it as if it's another normal day. It wasn't another normal day. Your safety and your view of the world have changed. And when your view of the world have changed, you have to do some serious adjusting.
And some people have seriously lost everything. People who had a lot, they've, in Durban, I know people who are, and some people have absolutely no food. I mean, in our townships and stuff, people are literally starving.
Yeah.
So, Louise, your two things that you would bring is tell your story, and the other thing is feel your feelings, but let them pass through you. Don't hang on to them.
Don't go into victimhood. Do not go into victimhood. Don't use that narrative. And a lot of us have got the narrative of going into victimhood as a normal. For a lot of people, victimhood is a normal. And if you put yourself here into the victimhood, then all you remain with is anger and bitterness. Now, we are fortunate because the communities have been so strong. The communities have really taken back their power, and the communities have been, in a way, what the entire country depended on to keep all of us safe because it was contained and it was such amazing examples. But everybody drew strength from each other. Like this does not have to happen. This can be stopped right there in the minute when somebody, before they throw that first paint can in the fire, it can be stopped. Before that poor guy who's new in the area and who's just done up his shop, before he loses his shop, we can stop this as a community. So that's amazing and it's wonderful, but and if we go to that, but before we go to that, we go to how we feel, how we actually felt. And we talk about it, then we are going to not have post-traumatic stress disorder from it. Because right now we are shocked. There's a difference between being in shock and having post-traumatic stress disorder. Last week I couldn't remember a single name. I couldn't focus. I couldn't concentrate. I didn't know what I was doing. If I opened the computer, I would forget what I was doing before I got to the other side. I kept on going down these rabbit holes, and most of them was Facebook or WhatsApp. And I just didn't do anything productive. And there was no organizing inside me, no organizational skills, no nothing. I was just there. I was a bit like a jelly baby, just there, taking
Yes, well,
space.
you were in shock and survival. I mean, you were in survival mode, so you can't be going on to emails and Facebook. Eh?
Yeah, no, and also, I mean, I decided that right now I have to be there for me. I can't be there for everybody else while I am in a state like that. I didn't do counseling. Didn't do anything. I was just like, I did. I just let me be where I was, which wasn't okay. And it's not
Yeah.
pretty, and it's not nice, and it's not perfect. And so what? If you're not okay, you're not okay. It's okay not to be okay. It
Well,
really
it's
is.
real.
Yeah.
It's real. And the other thing you mentioned tonight, which I think is massive, is feel your feelings, but without the judgment and the hatred, because that's becoming a big thing now. Let's blame somebody, let's throw some judgment out there, let's start a racial war, and that doesn't help your journey through this, does it?
No, it doesn't. Because, I mean, in the end, the message of all of this was exactly the opposite. Not about starting a racial war, but about the fact that if all of us, forget about the race, stand together against people who are criminal or who are used by politicians, then all of us are actually the majority and all of us can make a huge difference. Now, that is the thing which will save most of us from post-traumatic stress disorder. Is the thing that it is actually in the end it's been a very empowering experience. But the problem is you don't always have this outcome. It's not always this amazing. This is a miracle what that happened in this country. It's not all outcomes of trauma is miraculous and positive. And you have to apply all of these tools no matter whether your outcome is good or bad. And the problem with trauma is that mostly the outcome is going to be bad. Unfortunately, otherwise it wouldn't be called trauma. This we just I don't know. It's just like we were just incredibly blessed to have this outcome. But it's been hugely positive in the end. Even though a lot of people lost a lot, and a lot of people's businesses are ruined and burned to the ground and looted, and as a whole, the experience of actually having community and actually having support and other people there coming to help you in your distress. Um, that is the thing that I think in the end is such a blessing.
So don't you think this speaks to the fact, Louise, that always through trauma can come great outcomes, actually? I mean, not always. Trauma is trauma, but through trauma, we can come out the other side with some growth or some learning or some unity in this case, some positive. Sometimes that darkness has to explode for that to happen, actually, because we get a bit complacent, I think. Or
You know,
we
Antoinette, it's hard to talk about trauma in a general tone. People get raped, people get killed for no reason. That's hard. It's extremely hard. If you say to somebody in that very moment, you must find the blessing and the lesson in it. What you're doing is you're aggravating their circumstances. And for some people, where I am, where we've been saved, where I am, and I have made sure that we've got Sasria cover in place. So we have prepared before the time. And anybody who hasn't prepared can first of all take that lesson. Go and make sure your cover, your insurance cover includes Sasria, because at least you'll get something back, So those were small lessons. They are big lessons, because this is not only about this kind of trauma, it's about all traumas. But when you're in the middle of this trauma, this is not when you do personal work. This is not when you try and fix a relationship. This is not when you try and be a better person or a more aware person. This is not the time for meditation, I'm telling you. There's times for meditation. This is not the time for meditation. This is the time for going out, and if you need to do something good in the world, don't meditate. Go out and go and help in a soup kitchen, or go patrol your streets or whatever, but go and do something practical, because doing something practical is also going to help you through it. It's going to help you feel like you're being worthwhile and you're making a difference. And that's one of the things that's going to help you turn your trauma into something else. And that's why, remember, if we talk about enormous trauma. So I'm going to use Janetta as an example, because Janetta Barry, who lost her teenage daughter at 16. And nearly 2 years later, Janetta decided if she has to live this way, she can't live this way. And if she is going to live, there has to be something good coming out of it. And Janetta decided that if that's all she has, she cannot sit and soak in this enormous loss of having lost her daughter. And now, Janetta's now organizing Jenny's Day, which is an international thing, 16 years after Jenny died. So something has come out of it. In the middle of her trauma, none of us could turn around to her and say, something good will come out of it. It's not possible. It's not the thing that you do for somebody in that kind of trauma. So we've got to go on different levels of trauma when we deal with it. And everybody is different. Let's look at some comments.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Thank you, Louise. That was a very amazing show.
So there's another good thing then what came from it. Hey? We're talking about the stuff that really matters, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Hi, Mia, you made it live. Oh, thank you so much. That's awesome. Okay. Right. Well, I don't know. Hi, Mia, you're all by yourself here, so you must talk to us.
There's no one else. I'm so surprised.
No, I don't know where everybody is. Got quite a few nice hugs and hearts there. So sometimes people just sit and watch. And sometimes that's fine. Sometimes we don't need to say anything else. But if anybody has questions or comments or want to talk about their experience, then please go ahead. Hi, Paul. Because it's been different for everybody. But I do think also what we have to recognize is that feeling powerless is one of the biggest contributors to trauma. So anything that you feel powerless over is traumatizing. And this has definitely played a very big part in this whole story. And so the minute when you stop feeling powerless, when you take your power back, that's when you start to process the trauma. Let me get my glasses on, otherwise I can't read.
So how do you take your power back? You mean by taking some action and to your mind state? You deal with
both. So you take your power back when you go and you work in the soup kitchen. When, like here, we've had ladies who were cooking and making snacks and getting the guys who were standing guard through the night. They were providing them with meals the whole time, and that is helpful. Or helping to patrol. That's what the men has been doing around here. Taking back your power is very often about your mindset. Like when I was not feeling well, when I was feeling upside down and unfocused and really shaken, that's the only word, there's no other word, where I was really shaken. All I could do was to go do something that made me feel good. So I went and I did pottery. At that moment, that's what I did to take my power. That was then. That was that day. It changes. I talked to a lot of people. I probably recounted this story in a little bit more detail to probably about 20 people. And every time when I told the story, I took a little bit of my power back. So there's many, many ways of taking your power back. But in the end, when you have done the talking, when you have went and you changed your locks or whatever it is that you need to do in your particular circumstance to feel more in control of your life, because it's about losing control of your life, of what's going on around you. So losing your sense of safety in the world. In the end, what you have to do is get your head right. And your head have to focus on not pretending it didn't happen, but focus on how you can go forward in a way in which you don't feel unsafe in the world anymore, and you don't, and you can improve on what you've learned from this. My biggest lesson was that I should have talked to the people in my street long ago, because I always felt like I was alone, like I was the only one who was worried about the security. And now I don't feel like that anymore. Now I know I can talk to them. You see, which one did I push here? Hi, Alex. Nice to see you. Let me just go back here. Hi, Janine. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Sabine. Lovely to see you here. Hi, Chris. It's a pleasure. Okay, Jenny's radio center for core and traumatic things can assist. Yeah. Oh, you're so good. That's so good, Paul. I like it when you comment. Yeah, how true is that? Discover our uncovered strengths and weaknesses, and both are good. It really is good. And we also, when I was sending out a message in despair, I could hear it in my voice. I was so scared. I sent a message to our group and I phoned farm friends and I said, send the farmers. I said to everyone else, phone every farmer we know, because the farmers are the only ones who are going to save us now. But you could hear my voice shake. So scared. But in that moment, and these ladies in our street said to me, Louise, we're coming, we're helping. The ladies in our street said, oh, tell us what to do. I mean, I don't know what to do, but they said they're coming, they're helping. You have to ask for help. You don't have to be Superwoman. You don't have to wait until you're 5 minutes from being overtaken. You have to ask for help. I should know that, shouldn't I?
Yes, but sometimes we teach what we need to learn. So, wow, Louise, this has been powerful. Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, Linda. Let's see what Paul says. Extreme events outside of a routine can accelerate self-discovery. Too dramatic, reaching out to help gain one's balance. Yes, absolutely. You see, this is one of those things. Isn't this one of the things, Paul, that you learn when you're part of the groups? Because in the support groups, we learn this. This is why I love facilitating support groups, because the groups are there to support one another, to help each other through these things. For me, it's always a comforting thought that I can go to anybody in the group, and I can say, "Oh, this is really shitty," It's not really been hard, yeah. So this is because we don't start out as being group animals, But it's when things are really traumatic, that's actually when you need your tribe. And when people start doing work with me right in the beginning, one of the first things I say to people is enlarge your support group, your support system. Make sure you have many people instead of just one person you can depend on in your circle. And it's your job to enlarge your circle. Yeah, very valid point. And that connection, just to know that there's one other person who understands, who's gone through the same, who's had that same experience, that can help. Okay, so let me read this. Yeah. Okay, but you see, this is the thing. We don't know this. Until we become better, we don't know that we are wired for connection and that we, under pressure, we really need it until we get better. When we're not better, we just believe I have to look okay, I have to act like Superwoman and just help the rest of the world. And there's no space for me being wobbly.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what Sabina's asking. Okay, all right. Sabine, whereabouts are you? So are you also in KZN? Take us off. Okay, so I started feeling better on Sunday when I just stopped. That's all I can tell you. I stopped. Okay, thanks, and Howick. Okay, so I stopped. I stopped on Sunday, and I was just being, not doing anything, not going anywhere. I also stopped following Facebook and WhatsApp the whole time because that puts you on high alert. You have to work out for yourself a system where you can say that somebody else will help you check, that you don't check all the time if it's in a high alert situation. But also be aware that in the middle of what's going on, you're going to be adrenaline, and that's fight or flight, and you're still going to be fine because the blood's just going to be going. There's nothing in your head, but you'll be fine. But the minute when you actually calm down and you actually just start to be, and the adrenaline levels go down, that's when a lot of people are going to crash. Because I know that my adrenals don't work, I regularly go to a homeopath, and I'm very aware that my adrenals will crash. So I've got some homeopathic stuff that I've been taking because I knew my adrenals are not made for this kind of thing. I'm going to crash. So there are some natural stuff that you can get. I don't want to put trade names out here on. But if you message me, I'll tell you what to go and get, where and how to get it. And it's just completely natural and will help you just to even yourself out so that you can just get through this. And I'm not a big fan of antidepressants or any of those because you can't feel your feelings. And then you sit with the results for a very long time afterwards. Antidepressants is not the answer now. But definitely talk to people and try and get something natural just to even you out. And don't try to be normal. This is the most important thing. It's okay if you don't try to be normal. Antoinette, did you phone me or WhatsApp me? I said to her, I'm hiding in my cupboard. I've got a walk-in cupboard. I was sitting on a bag of cat sand in my cupboard because I wanted to. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to sit in a dark cocoon and just sit there until I knew what this feelings was that I was feeling. I still don't know what the feelings was. But I was sitting there, and it was fine. It's not rational, but it's what I needed to do at the time. So, Sabine, one day at a time. Don't expect to be okay today. Just start implementing all of these. Yesterday, I decided I can't be hypervigilant anymore. I played some beautiful music that I love, and every little step where you regain a little bit of your normalcy, Last week I just drank coffee, liters of coffee. I don't drink a lot of coffee. It's not good for me. But I was just like subsisting on coffee. I couldn't even be bothered to make decent food. And I eat healthy every day. That was last week. So what, you're in crisis mode. You do what you're doing in crisis mode. You can always go back to normal afterwards. But when you've been through it in a while, then you've got to make an effort to get back to normal. And also, if you still have a lot of adrenaline in your system, exercise, because exercise takes adrenaline out of your system. It helps to release and replace it with endorphins. So even like long walks, hug the cats, hug the dogs. Do that. When you do that, you are then having endorphins in your system instead of all this cortisol that's running around when you are in hyper-aroused states. Okay, so Linda, in this case, for us, what we've dealt with, post-traumatic stress disorder is a whole different topic altogether. Okay, I'm happy to talk about it. For us right now, we cannot be in post-traumatic stress disorder already. Post-traumatic stress disorder is what happens if you don't process it, which is why please process this. It's important, it's imperative that you actually process this, be very kind to yourself, and do these things that we've mentioned. But post-traumatic stress is what comes afterwards. It's all the stuff that you suppress. And post-traumatic stress can be, I had post-traumatic stress disorder from that car accident. But I also had post-traumatic stress disorder when my relationship fell apart because I didn't talk about it. I was just still pretending everything is wonderful to the world. So which is so silly, because if once we start telling everybody it's fine to go and sit in your dark walk-in cupboard on top of a bag of cat sand, it is fine. Really. Who loves me less because I sat in a dark room on a bag of cat sand? It actually helps me, and being Superwoman wouldn't have helped me. It wouldn't have helped anybody. So if you're just going through your feelings, acknowledging them, try and feel them, not soak in them, and talk to enough people about it, then you will not have post-traumatic stress disorder. If you deal with it now, you deal with it properly now. But if you already have post-traumatic stress disorder, and this is what's interesting, one of the major things that tells you that you have post-traumatic stress disorder is loss of memory, but shock also does that. But shock is immediate. Shock does it now, in this minute. It's the same. You can't concentrate, you can't focus, you're hyper-vigilant. Post-traumatic stress disorder does the same, but it's afterwards. It's when the shock is not dealt with and it's prolonged and it carries on and on and on. It's still there 6 months down the line, 3 months down the line. A year later, you can't look at it, you can't mention somebody's name, or you can't relive that same experience, and you fall to pieces again. Post-traumatic stress disorder is really when you dissociate from yourself. So there's a person in there, but it's a disassociation problem. But you have no control over your feelings. You feel utterly and completely helpless. I have crawled under a writing desk in the middle of post-traumatic stress disorder, where I just felt I'm just going to sit here and cry because I don't know what else to do. And I walked out of a psychologist's office and I was completely re-traumatized, and I stood in the middle of a shopping center with margarine and butter in my hand, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I put it down and I just stood there. I think I stood there in the supermarket for probably about an hour, not knowing what I'm supposed to do. So from being completely fine when I walked into it, when I was re-traumatized, back to the event inside a psychologist's office. So post-traumatic stress disorder is something that's prolonged, and you can be re-traumatized over and over and over by feeling the same feelings at that time. If you're still in shock, you don't get re-traumatized, you are letting it go. if you talk through it in a safe environment and not going into a negative space. Okay, I think we are more or less at the end. If anybody has any questions? Hi, Lynn. So nice to see you. I haven't talked to you forever. Yeah, it's been amazing. People have been amazing. Thanks for coming. Yeah, nice to see you on live, Mia. Okay. Okay, well, I hope Sabina's getting this. Okay, so so this is very valid. This is the masterclass of this. So this is something that when you've been working with me for a long time, you understand about your immediate reaction, which is making you feel powerless. And that is your amygdala immediately go into the immediate unpowerless thing. And then when you actually start applying logic in your frontal lobes, then you don't then you can get back to reasonability, and you can start to work again. You can, but there's a bit of a difference between being triggered by something which is a paper tiger, which can't really kill you, and being really in harm's way. And so, when you talk about long-term trauma, then this is what Paul's describing is much more relevant. So if you are in the middle of a situation which is not a paper tiger, then you are just on a pure adrenaline survival rush, and you're going to have after effects from it. Okay, all right. So I think we're at the end of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Louise, that was extraordinarily powerful, if you ask me. Thank you for sharing that, and it was invaluable, actually. And possibly we need to set up a support group. I don't know, because yeah, it's not so easy when you're in it. Hey.
No, it's not. It's not easy. I want everybody to go back, please. Paul's post here is a very long one, very very on point, and so I want everybody to go back, read it through, because there's 5, 6, 7 points in there. I know we don't want to keep it long. We try and keep it in half an hour. Tonight's not going to be a half an hour, apparently. So please go back there and read about it. I'm quite happy to have more conversations about that, especially from those points that Paul have mentioned there. Support groups are extremely important. I think that I'm very happy to invite anybody to become part of a whole adult-child experience, because we deal with stuff like this all the time, because adult children have got lifelong post-traumatic stress disorder in a low grade. So it's something that you understand once you start doing the work, is that how long you've been on high alert. So this is high alert on steroids. But when you have had since small, you've always been on scanning mode, you understand about post-traumatic stress disorder. And then, of course, also in a relationship, when a relationship is very tense and you are always on the lookout, always scanning, then you also get relational post-traumatic stress syndrome, where it's purely about the relationship in itself, which is so stressful. So there are various different ways of it, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that we do not deal with it right in the beginning when we should be dealing with it, and we try and just go back. Remember what I said in the beginning, there's a dichotomy between we want the normal back, but we need to talk. And when we can actually take these two and put it together, then we can get the normal back, but we'll have a new normal in which this is processed.
Yeah, and if we don't do that, we tend to store it in our bodies, and it
Yeah.
can make us sick. So,
It's a big pleasure, Sabine. Glad you joined us. Yeah.
thank you.
Well, okay, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. And Antoinette, thanks for starting this. And yeah, so
Thank you,
we'll see,
Louise.
we'll see you next week again. Maybe, I don't know, maybe or maybe not. I you know what, we may or may not, we decide as we go. This is really how we do. Hi, Antoinette, it's Monday, it's Tuesday. Do you think we're going to do a live? Okay, yeah, sure. What are we talking about? No, let's see. Oh, this feels good. Let's talk about that. That's more or less how it goes. So just if anybody wants to know what's our system. We have a system.
Going with the flow. And right now, there's so many big issues on the table. We can only go with the flow. Thank you, Louise.
Really. And then next week, I am going to try and do the masterclass on shame. It's just been pushed back and pushed back and pushed back, so which is really interesting to me because I've been ready to do it for a while now, but I'm actually going to try and do it next week, Wednesday. So there'll be emails going out on that. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for joining us, and lots of love to you, and we'll hopefully see you soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah, good night. And every minute of your life that you save, just give thanks, because Louise knows what it's like to feel very unsafe. Thank you, Louise.
A lot of people do. Yeah,
a lot of people do. Yeah. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Thank you, Louise.
Here's my song. I just played the wrong song.